So we live in a world where we're running out of oil. Global warming is flashed in our face every 5 minutes. Deadly diseases are on the verge of beating current medicines. And at the focal point of all of this is caring for the environment. And it's that has really shaped the way that cars are being built today. For example, Mercedes don't put a 6.3 litre AMG engine in their cars anymore. They'd much rather put a 5.5 litre turbocharged engine in their car because they can get the same power, but obviously reduce the emissions that the car produces, reduce the amount of fuel consumption. So with all of these changes going about, what's the future of our everyday cars? Because obviously with big engines being downscaled, even Formula 1 engines are being downscaled from 2014. What's the future for us? Are we to be subjected to pitifully small engines that are underpowered? Ford seem to be the first company who've taken a real leap of faith in the technology that's available to petrol engines, surprisingly, not turning to the super eco diesel route. And this is what they've come up with. Changes. Turn and face the strain. Changes. Don't wanna be a richer man. Changes. Turn and face the strain. Changes. It's gonna have to be a different man. Time may change me, but I can't trace time. Okay. So here we are in, wait for it, a 1 litre Ford Focus. And not just any old Ford Focus, it's an estate car. A 1 litre estate car. Doesn't quite make sense in your head, does it? But this machine, believe it or not, with the aid of a turbo, produces 100 horsepower. It has 5 gears. It's comfortable. It's a 3-cylinder engine that amazingly doesn't behave like a 3-cylinder engine. There's no continuous thrum, there's next to no vibration, which is surprising considering its odd number of cylinders. And the benefits of this are twofold. Firstly, you get a very, very low tax bill every year. But secondly, we're getting high 40s in terms of miles to the gallon, which is absolutely incredible. Now that might be all well and good, I hear you say. It is all well and good actually. There's no downsides to this engine because it doesn't have the weedy performance you would expect from a 1 litre engine. It pulls cleanly. There's plenty of power. I've sat on the motorway at relatively high speed in this car for long periods of time, and it showed no signs of giving up. You'd think that in a 1 litre car, particularly one that's this big, you'd have problems overtaking lorries or the dawdlers in the middle lane, but no. In fact, this car, in several tests, has accelerated faster to 60 miles an hour than its 1.6 litre counterpart. So, hats off to Ford there, because here we have a very economical car with all the practicality and all of the things we love about the Ford Focus. Its sharp handling, its torque vectoring, but you get this tiny little engine which is actually, the block itself is the size of an A4 sheet of paper, that delivers the same or potentially better performance than the 1.6 litre car. Now this one is the 100 horsepower, as I just mentioned. There is also a slightly spicier version with 6 speeds, which you might need if you do regular long journeys on the motorway in a car such as this. But to be perfectly honest, this 5-speed 100 horsepower car, as opposed to the 125 horsepower, is quiet, it's refined. 5th gear on the motorway, it's sort of 80 miles an hour. You're just over 3,000 RPM. It's not screaming. I mean, it's very hard to fault. I mean, as this is with any Focus, not just this 1 litre car, the lack of feel through the wheels a bit disappointing considering as the Focus has always been such an involving car. But that is literally it. Genuinely, this is one of the most faultless cars I've ever reviewed. I was so ready to be a skeptic about this tiny little engine, but do you know what? It is absolutely the future. Engines are getting smaller, but with the aid of a turbo, and there's next to no lag on this as well, I might add, and also from a handling point of view, though the steering is, as I said, not quite as involving as you'd like, or as its predecessor, I'd say. It's still one of the most involving drives in its class. But the lightness of that tiny little engine up front, my goodness me, you can chuck this thing into corners and it just doesn't care. Understeer's kept at bay by the torque vectoring, and you know, you can actually have a riot in this thing. It's happy to change gear whenever you want to try and save fuel, but you can rev the nuts off of it because it's a revvy little 3-cylinder, just like your first car, but without the whole sort of, you know, 40 horsepower deficit to everybody else's. I'm genuinely impressed with this. Build quality is fantastic from Ford as always. The new architecture in the cabin, which was brought in when the Focus was this generation came along, is really nice and pleasant. This car's got DAB radio. This is the Zetec model. It's quite well equipped. Seats are comfortable. It's good on long journeys. Plenty of room in the back. You can fit 2 dogs in the boot in this estate version, and that's just about it. There's just not a lot of bad things to say, and don't think it's just me. Go and read some other reviews. This car really is something special, and this engine is absolute dynamite.